First name's Jesse, last name's Rodello. I go by the gamer tag of Hellfire. Unless I'm PC, I go by Synthetic, but I prefer the name Hellfire when I'm talking competitive gaming, and I'm from the Denver, Colorado area.
For sure. And what fighting games do you say you specialize in, or you play?
Honestly, I'll play any fighter, but if I were to say I specialize in any of them, definitely would have to be the anime-related ones. Anything made by Arxis is usually what I try and play.
Sure. All right. And what got you into fighting games originally? Not necessarily playing them at a professional level, but what made you just have an interest or like fighting games?
Well, okay, so when I was a little kid, my dad used to buy the Tekken and Virtua Fighter games. That's where I started. Of course, when I was a little kid, I button mashed and thought I was hot shit, like every little kid. Then I fell off and I didn't touch a fighting game for a long time. And then remember, it was summer of 2008 or something. There was nothing. Like there was no games, nothing. I was bored out of my mind, and I started looking for that next fix, I guess. And that's when I heard about BlazBlue. Sure. And that's where I started. I mean, I never really cared about learning a fighting game until then, and that's the first fighting game that actually made me care.
Cool. All right. And then obviously, taking that to a whole nother level, what made you basically want you to play it at a professional level, start studying the game?
Well, it's actually kind of a funny story. So at first I started playing BlazBlue with the arcade mode and everything like that, and I was playing at the time Rachel, and I'm like, oh, I can shoot her little projectile, and oh my gosh, I'm so good because the bot keeps running into it, And then I realized, there's online or whatever, so I decided to try it online, and I was kind of winning with scrub tactics using Ragna at first, and then out of nowhere, some guy came into my room, and he used to be an ex-Guilty Gear player, and he actually knew how to play the game, and he bodied me, and he continued to body me for like 10 rounds or something, and then he finally put in his mic, and he's like, yo man, why haven't you kicked me from your lobby? Like, people usually kick me when they get bodied like this. And I'm like, well, I've never played against someone that was good, so I wanted to see how far I could take it, basically. And so after that, he actually started teaching me stuff. That was the first time I actually learned that things had startup and recovery and all this crazy stuff that I didn't even know existed. I was just pressing buttons.
Right.
And so that opened my eyes to this whole different side of fighting games that I didn't even know existed.
For sure.
And so he told me about Dust Loop, and I took off from there.
Nice. And what was your personal first arcade stick that you've ever owned?
Okay, so that's another kind of funny story. I used to play on pad forever, and one of my friends he saw me getting into fighting games, and I guess he had an interest in Street Fighter, and so he got me to buy Street Fighter and a standard edition stick because it was what was cheapest at the time. Mm-hmm. I never touched that thing for like 3 months. It was strictly my friend's stick. When he came over to play Street Fighter, he used the stick, and then finally he chewed my ass out. He's like, yo, you bought this stick, why aren't you using it? And so I finally made the switch to stick. It took me like a month to actually learn how to play on it.
Sure.
Right after that, I remember it was like one of my first tournaments here in Colorado, and I only played on Xbox, and all tournaments run on PlayStation. So I went to like 5 different GameStops before I finally got a Marvel vs. Capcom 2 PlayStation stick. That was my first actual tournament stick.
Oh, nice. All right, and then in your craft or in the games that you play, either in general or just specifically in the animes, what would you say are some of your personal strengths in the games?
I'm really quick to pick up general strats. I have a strong sense of fundamentals, even though I don't necessarily abuse that fact. And a lot of the people here constantly tell me that my defense is when I'm really playing, my defense is so hard to get through. Probably comes from the fact that in BlazBlue I played Tiger, and that's all I could do was block. So I have a very strong defense, and again, I like to play very simple. I don't try and go for crazy gimmicks. I don't go for these crazy setups. Just simple, basic fundamentals, solid defense, and that's what I do.
For sure. And then on top of that, obviously, the glasses always have to empty. What would you say are some of your personal weaknesses as well in your craft?
Well, my biggest weakness is I don't play fighters like I should. I'm notorious here for I only play during gatherings, and if I'm at home, I'm not playing fighting games, which is a good 98% of the time. I'm there playing League of Legends, Counter-Strike. Like, you name the game, if it's not a fighter, I'm probably playing it. And it's probably my biggest weakness, because I could be a much stronger player if I'd actually focused on fighters. Mm-hmm. And then another big weakness of mine is I tend to get a little bit antsy in matches. I'll be up in life and I should be just chilling and playing defensive and keeping that life lead, and I'm just like, I want to get this shit done with, and I start making stupid mistakes because I rush in when I shouldn't.
For sure. And then during your tournament experience, or just playing matches in general, have you ever had a very either emotional or an accomplished win while playing in your whole fighting game community experience?
Well, probably my biggest win was at EVO Losers Finals. I was playing against a Teddy player because the main game I was playing that year was Persona. And he beat me the first match, and he beat me the first round of the second match. And I was kind of getting like, oh man, it's over. Like, I made all the way to Losers Finals. You know, I thought it was over for me. And I had no health. Like, I mean, a 5A would have killed me. I had no health, and I landed a couple hits on him, and he must have just, I'm not sure if it was a panic burst or if he's like, yo, I'm so close to winning, screw it, I'd stop his momentum immediately before he gets it. And he bursted really early. And because of the character I play in that game, who's Naoto, she has infinite loops. I was actually able to land one and infinite him all the way from, he had full health, I had no health. And then, like, the whole time I was landing that super and going into that setup, I was like, this is it, man. If I drop it, it's game over. And I didn't drop it. And I don't know, it was one of two options. I either made the guy crack, or I got so hype off that win that I just came back and actually made it out of pools, which was, for me, like, that was huge.
Right.
Because just before EVO, those SMP loops they're hard for me. Like, under high pressure situations, I couldn't land them.
Right.
I mean, now I land them almost like 98% of the time. Like, I rarely drop them, but I think that was the moment where it's like, oh my god, I can do it under, big pressured moments.
For sure. And you already kind of went part off into the whole EVO question, the recap of EVO. What place did you get in your craft, and then what did you learn from your experience at EVO?
Okay, so I got top 32 at Persona, which was the only game I really cared for. I did enter Injustice, but after I got out of pools, that was my goal. It was my very first EVO. I'm like, first EVO, I'm getting out of pools. That was just my goal. If I could make it any farther than that, I would be happy, but I was ecstatic when I got out of pools and made top 32. Like, I didn't even think I was going to make top 32, but when I beat Losers Finals, the tournament organizer came up and was like, congratulations on making top 32. And I that was awesome for me. And my biggest experience that I learned from EVO actually wasn't from EVO. It was the moments leading up to EVO. Because again, I'm notorious for not playing fighters, even though I show up to all the gatherings, I show up to all the tournaments, all that stuff. And then the month before EVO, I never played a fighting game as much as I did. I just grinded it out. I was looking up, strats, what to do, matchups. I was basically packing in as much knowledge into my head the month before EVO. And it was within that 1 month and then making top 32 that made me realize, shit, what am I doing? Like, I should be playing a lot more than what I am, and I could be a much better player.
Sure.
Like, it makes me question, like, if I had been playing the game as seriously as I was that 1 month, the whole time the game was out, how far would I have made it?
Yeah. And obviously, with such a good amount of experience going to majors and obviously playing in tournaments, what would you say to a person who either hasn't played or is starting to play fighting games? What's some of the recipes in order for them to become a better player?
Well, I actually have a motto, and I actually tell this motto to every single person, whether they're new or old or whatever. I learned it fast when I first started playing BlazBlue, when I met that OG Guilty Gear player. You gotta get your ass beat if you want to get better. It's just how it is. I mean, losing is so much more important than winning, because if you keep winning, you keep thinking you're doing something right. When you start losing, that's when you're like, what am I doing wrong? Am I pressing the wrong button? Am I doing the wrong block string? Am I just rushing in when I'm not supposed to? You start thinking when you start losing. So, like I said, my motto is you got to get your ass beat if you want to get better.
For sure.
And then, after I tell them that, I tell them that they shouldn't take losses. Like, no one should ever take losses too seriously to the point where, like, shit, I lost, I'm done, I don't want to play fighters anymore, these guys are too good for me. And you see it all the time in the FGC. You see it all the time. Like, some guy thinks he's hot shit because he can do stuff online, goes to his first tournament, gets bodied, and you never see him again. And I think that's because people take the losses too seriously. So I think that'd be the step one for someone that's just starting. Just you got to remember, you got to lose if you want to get better, but don't take the losses to a personal level.
For sure.
After that, the basic, you learn your footsies, learn your combos, and the rest will come naturally.
Yeah. And then personally for yourself, what keeps you motivated? Is it trying to win the money? Is it trying to get publicity, competition? What wants you want to keep playing fighters at a tournament level?
Honestly, up until recently, I mostly just show up to the tournaments because I like the community. Everyone's chill. Made a lot of friends here. So that's the main reason I kept playing. I was like, well, if I keep playing, I'll have a reason to go to these tournaments, and if I'm at the tournaments, I can hang out with everybody, kind of thing. And then, as I said, after Evo, that's when I realized, like, shit, I can do better. I need to take it to a more, I guess, professional level. I want to win, basically, now. I have placed, I have won a couple of tournaments, some here and there, and now I just want to make sure I'm a more consistent player, make sure I'm consistently hitting that top 3 or the top 8 at a major or something like that.
And personally, through the Colorado fighting game community, where would you place yourself in a player tier list? And this is overall, not just in a specific craft.
Overall, I don't know. I'm super modest. I always probably put myself down lower than I would be. I see myself just a mid-tier player. I understand the fundamentals and everything, but the fact that I don't play really hinders me. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Okay, for sure. And then Colorado in general, how would you compare Colorado compared to the rest of USA?
Well, Colorado compared to the rest of the states and all that, we're actually not too far behind. I will admit we are behind, and I think that's mostly due to the fact that we have a bigger community than people think. I'd say we have a pretty decent sized community. The more I talk to people online, the more I realize, we got, for Persona, we got a good, solid 14 plus players here. And there's places like Minnesota and stuff like that only have the 3 players. So it makes me realize we have a pretty decent sized community here. And because of that, I think we get strong, but the reason why we haven't progressed as much as we should have is because no one here really has the time or the money to go to majors consistently. So we're not getting that, different exposure to different play styles, learning from other people. So I feel like we could be, as a community, a lot better had we some sort of, sponsorship or some sort of system here where we can send more people out of state a lot more often.
For sure. And you already touched on Colorado's community and how we have a pretty solid one at that. What would you say to people who are, don't either know that they have a community, or players that are kind of alone in a sense and they want to start their own community? What kind of advice would you give for them to just start finding other players?
You can always start online. There's tons of websites. Sure, you can Event Hubs, Dust Loop. Every scene for whatever game you're looking for, there's a website for it. Just starting up the thread saying hey, I live in Denver. Is there anyone here? And chances are someone might just stumble upon the thread and invite you over or whatever. And if not, you can a community, in my opinion, is just you and one other person. If you and one other person are constantly playing, constantly trying to get better, you have a community right there. And then again, just if you have those 2 people, sooner or later you're going to get that third person. You're going to let's say me and another person are at the college and we're playing games every single day. You're going to get that one person who just decides to come into the room and be like, oh, hey, it's Street Fighter. You know, I watch this on streams or whatever, and you know that person will start showing interest, and if he decides to stay around, you now have a third person, and community just will grow from there. And then obviously advertising, you know, just say like, hey, I'm hosting gatherings at my house, like, you know, make some friends at school, at your workplace, whatever, and just say, yeah, I'm going to try to do weekly gatherings. And
sure.
That can really just jumpstart a community right there.
Yeah, for sure. And then, what is your personal definition, or what is just in general an OG?
See, I don't really care for the term OG, simply because I feel like the term OG means it's your right to make certain remarks, certain statements about certain games. Oh, I was playing Street Fighter since Street Fighter 2, that means I know everything about Street Fighter 4. No, it doesn't. So I feel like the term OG, in my opinion, means to me it means someone who has been playing the game and knows about the game. I mean, yes, it really means someone who's probably been around in the community for 5+ years, 6+ years, whatever. They've been around the block, right? That's a normal term of an OG. But just because, like, again, just because you're playing the older games doesn't mean you're shit in the newer games. I mean, you do have a definite edge. You have the fundamentals already backing you up. You have the experience. You have all that stuff. But I mean, you have plenty of new players that those 09ers that get all the flack and all the hate. You know, they started in 09, but you see a bunch of them still, you know, destroying their communities because they care about the game. They put in more time, more effort than the OGs now. Most OGs just kind of stay home and bicker about games and hate on things because it wasn't how it used to be.
Sure. And touching that, since you're our only Denver representative here doing this question or doing this review, would you say there is a Denver and Springs rivalry?
Honestly, you're asking the wrong person. Because I'm probably one of the few Denver people that comes down to the Springs on a consistent basis. But
sure.
I want to say that the rivalry was around when I first started. I think it's really died down recently, especially since, again, the OGs, as we call them, they don't show up to anything anymore. Most of the rivalry was between the OGs. The new blood that's been showing up for the games that are out now, they don't care if you're from Springs, they don't care if you're from Denver, Fort Collins, wherever. They just want games. So I feel like the rivalry isn't as strong as it used to be. It's more just a community wanting to get better. However, that being said, I do wish that the rivalry was back, because I feel like having a strong rivalry, just in general, can make a community stronger. Because now you suddenly have a reason that, okay, like, let's say, you know, person A thinks he's hot shit, and person B comes in and challenges him and beats person A. Now there's a rivalry, because now person A is like, oh no, I don't want to be beat. So the rivalry really helps push people to get better. So even though the Springs versus Denver rivalry isn't here now, I wanted to make a comeback.
For sure. And just in Colorado in general, in the whole fighting game community, who would you say is the most underrated or upcoming player that's coming up right now in the community?
Well, if you had asked me this maybe 6 months ago, I would say Justin. That guy was so hungry for Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and he's proven it. Ever since he's gotten good at the game, he's been winning tournaments consistently. He's without a doubt number one. But as of right now, I think our best up-and-coming players, we got a guy named Seeker High Tier, who seriously, the month before EVO, he was okay. Like he knew what he was doing, but he didn't really know what he was doing. And then we recently had a tournament, and I don't know, I think it was maybe his loss at EVO or something, but that guy kicked it up a notch, and holy shit, like he is definitely top 3 for Persona now, without a doubt. Him, and I would say probably another guy named Miracle Knight. He kind of came out of nowhere, already being very strong at the game, and he's only proven that he's he's not faltering. Like, he's going to stay strong. So those are probably, as of right now, our best 2 up-and-comers.
For sure. And this is kind of a 2-part question. It's one of the final questions. What are some of the up-and-coming games that are coming out either at the end of this year or next year? And then for 2014, what are some of your goals as a fighting game player?
Okay, well, now are we talking about games in general or just for fighters?
Fighting games in general.
Fighting games? All right. Obviously, there's Blaze Blue at the end of this month. I started off with Blaze Blue. I'm gonna, I haven't truly played a fighter seriously since the first Blaze Blue. I plan on bringing that back with the new one. And with that being said, I'm very excited for it. I'm going to be importing it, all that good stuff. And my goal for 2014 is, I would love to win Evo at Blaze Blue, but my actual goal right now is I want to make sure that I'm the best Amane Nishiki player in the United States. Like, I want people, when they think of this character, they think of me, not of other people. So sure. I want to be the most dominant player for that character.
All right. And then for a little bit of closure, do you have any shout-outs, anything you want to give out to somebody, or Twitter handles, or anything like that everybody's doing nowadays?
Right. If you have Twitter and you want to follow me, I'm at Hellfire CO. If you want to follow me, other than that, shout-outs just to the Colorado FGC. I feel like, all the weak players that started off, 2009, they've been weeded out. I feel like the community that's here now is here to stay, and I think we're actually a lot more serious about getting better than the people that have been weeded out. So just a big shout outs to the Colorado FGC right now, because I think we're a force to be reckoned with, and I think people are going to realize that in 2014.
For sure, man. And that concludes that interview. So thank you for your time. That was Jesse Rodello.